Everybody wants to know how we started in business. How do we get into the real estate industry? How do we start as real estate investors? And I would say, to sum up our family, to sum up our marriage, the way we raise our children, is basically almost a perfect blend between righteousness and ratchetness. Like, literally.
It's the Working Mom!
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of the Working Mom podcast. Today, my special guest is none other than my husband, the protector and provider of our castle, Mr. Jerome Macarthur. How are you doing today, Jerome?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so happy that you were able to be my next guest on the podcast and kind of speak about some things with business and so forth with us. So we just want to dive right in. We are, just FYI, everyone, we are in the same home. We're still quarantined, but we're new to podcasting. So we wanted to make sure our camera angles were right and we were able to see and speak without staring over at the wrong camera. So Jerome is down in our home office, but he's basically just a few feet away from me during the entire interview. And I think, Jerome, we've been, quarantined since the middle of March or so?
Yeah, since March, yep.
Yeah, for the first time last week, our baby girl went outside, which she has not been out probably in like 140 days or so. So she decided that she wanted to finally step out to go to the grocery store for a little while, but I think that was more than enough outside for her right now during the pandemic. She prefers and think, obviously much safer at home. So she doesn't really want to be out and about. So we've just been here enjoying our time with family and enjoying our time with the kids, cooking out on the grill, in the pool and so forth, and obviously handling tons of business. So our story has been well documented, pieces of it. Anybody that has known us for a very, very long time. So we're going to start from the very beginning. So you don't have the ability to change this story because anybody can go back and watch our wedding video on how we met. So hopefully you tell it exactly the same. But the first place I wanted to start is everyone always asks the question, how did Jerome and Ebony meet? So I always get that, did we meet at the club, or what kind of weird situation were we in? And unfortunately, we don't have that story to tell. It would probably make everything a lot more amusing to say that we met somewhere spectacular in some kind of spectacular story. But I'll let you start from the beginning. And how did you and I meet?
Okay. Well, we met at East Point Mall. I seen Ebony walking with, it was her mother and her sister. I didn't know that at the time, but I seen her with 2 other people. So I seen them, and, they was walking. And I didn't say anything, because, I could tell the other woman she was with was a little older. So they had broke off. And then when they broke off, that's when I approached Ebony, and, we exchanged.
I went over to Annie's Pretzel to get a pretzel from my mom.
That's when I was like, it was game time. So I approached her, and we exchanged phone numbers. And look, now, look at now, we're here.
And at that time, it was probably, a little over 20 years ago?
Yes.
So we've known each other for a very, very long time, and have obviously built not only a friendship, but a relationship and a bond that I don't know if ever can be emulated ever again. It's really something that I feel as though is extremely special. And oftentimes I will say nowadays that I'm really not good on giving marriage advice, because when I look at what we have and what we've created, it's kind of hard for me to give advice, because I don't know, this is kind of like a once in a lifetime situation where I don't know if everyone will be able to achieve that. So it's kind of hard to give people advice on what they should do when it really takes two special people with similar mindsets, similar goals, and so forth, and determination to kind of mesh together to create, another family of our own, which, we have 4 kids and just so much that we always have going on here. But I think that's actually something super special, and it's kind of hard nowadays to see that duplicated again. So next I want to get into just a tiny bit about yourself. We both are super private people, so a lot of people may not know a lot about you, Jerome. So first I want you to tell a few stories about kind of like your journey with the military. Jerome is a U.S. Navy veteran, and you were signed into the military by your mom, at age 16?
Age 16, my birthday came late. We graduated in June. My birthday wasn't until October. My parents had to sign the papers for me to go right after high school. So I literally was like one of the youngest people on my ship. When I got to my ship, I was 17. They used to call me the baby of the ship. So I was definitely the youngest person on the ship.
So tell a little bit about some of your travels and where you've been. I know you've been all over the country, and the children always love hearing any kind of stories that you have about the military and different places that you've been. And I know you always will tell stories about where to get the best pizza and where some places to dine at and so forth that were your favorite places around the country. So I don't know if you can remember everywhere you've been, because I know it's a long laundry list, but if you can share some of the places at such a young age that you had the privilege to travel throughout the world with the United States Navy.
Well, like you said, I've been all over the world. Some places, they do, stand out in my head. I had a lot of fun in Almeria, Spain, Italy, France. It's just been so many different places, and to just see the impact that we have as African Americans in these different locations. I remember that this guy, he was in Greece, and he was like, hey, I listen to Tupac, stuff like that, Biggie, people like that. And I'm like, wow, these people are from the United States, and how much, influence they have all across the world. And I mean, it was just a great experience. I tell the kids all the time that I had, so much fun in the military. I also told them about the time that I was in a helicopter and we had to jump into the middle of the ocean. So it's been a lot of things that I did, and I had fun doing it. I would have to get a book to name all the different places that I went, but certain places stand out in my head.
So another thing that I wanted to make sure that we speak about, and the kids had a special request for this, is for you to talk about some of your mentoring. For the past probably almost 15 to 18 years, you probably discontinued it maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. You were doing huge mentorship in the city of Baltimore. And I mean, at any given time, you would have multiple young men that you were mentoring and that you were a father figure to. Even to this day, again, plenty of times I just hear you on the phone and they call you for all kind of advice. And when I speak to some of them, they say, I want to be just like Mr. Jerome, and say things like that all the time. But I know during that time, we even would keep a lot of those things to ourselves. So if you kind of was around us, you would know that, once you left your regular job, you would go out and do one-on-one services with different teenagers and obviously troubled teens per se in the Baltimore area, kids with special needs and things of that nature. And they basically throughout the years became like a family to us. So Jerome would come to me all the time and say, we have to take this person on vacation with us because I don't want them to go into a group home. And initially I was kind of like, but we have all of these kids of our own. Like, how is that possible for us at such a young age to be able to manage that? And you always used to reassure me that it was going to be fine and that we were going to make a way and that we could do whatever we could on our end to save as many of these kids as possible and kind of be a mentor that they didn't have and be that family figure. Some of them weren't around, kind of like that family figure that we had. Like they would see us together all the time and going to movies all the time and going to mini golf and to vacations and restaurants and things like that, and just kind of hanging around basic kitchen table talk. So speak a little bit about how important that was to you at that time. I know now you have decided once, I believe once the last young man that you were working with graduated high school, you wanted to see him all the way through. You decided to discontinue because we are no longer in the area. But again, I know that a lot of them still lean towards you as that father figure and towards that leader in their lives. So just speak a little bit about how important that was to you and what made you basically be all in with these young men and kind of that role model to them in their lives.
Okay, like I said, I guess it started from joining the military young, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I know I wanted to be successful. So once I joined the military at a young age, I was with a lot of older people. And when I say older, they might have been 23, 24, but they were still older than me. I was only 16. So a lot of jewels that they used to drop, I either, I listened or I didn't listen. I chose to listen. I mean, I had one guy, and he was a Caucasian guy, probably in his 30s. He said, you know something? Always make sure you got good credit. And that kind of set the example to me, like, you know something? I need to make sure that I'm able to do something, do stuff, and able to take what people are giving me. They're giving this stuff for free, and I'm able to either use it or don't use it. So I took that same mind frame into working with the kids. I got tired of seeing children, they just cast them off, oh, they're bad children, they're bad children. A lot of times children aren't bad. It's just they need some kind of guidance. They need somebody they can relate to. Yes, I was out in the streets when I was younger and things like that. So they need to know that you can make a change. Just because you was in the streets when you was younger don't mean you have to be in the streets when you're older. So I used to sit there and, just really think about, how to approach them. And a lot of times I just was me, and they respected that. It wasn't sugar-coated, oh, Mr. Jerome don't know anything. No, Mr. Jerome been around a lot. So Mr. Jerome knew a lot. I had the support of you, had the support of my children to even bring them around and make them feel comfortable. And I wanted to make sure y'all was comfortable. And you was like, something, I don't have no problem with it. It was times we took them out and we treated them like family. And at times they didn't have that kind of family, structure like we had. We would go out and eat $500 and $600. We had Jimmy's, order what y'all want to eat. Things like that. We would go to baseball games, basketball games, stuff like that. They would even, they would come over, play the game, play with my kids. And like I said, everybody.
Yeah, like if we were even going to a wedding or a funeral, they were coming with us most of the time. So
and people would look at us. We would come in there with all them kids, and they be looking at you like, you got all those kids?
It was like literally, and a lot of times, obviously, especially as they got older, they, would reference you as their father figure or say you were their stepdad or something of that nature. And then those points kind of cringe me a tiny bit, because I'm like, if people don't know, they may think that Jerome has like stepkids out here somewhere, but it was fine. It was fine. I understand that they, look up to you and really wanted you to be, they wanted to claim you as their dad. They wanted to say like, this is my dad, and be proud of it. And I know several times we even kind of had a little meeting or two to say like, what should we call them? Like, is everybody okay with, and to our own kids, just to make sure they were comfortable? Like, is it okay to say that they're your guard brothers? Do you guys want to say that they're your brother? Like, how do you want to say it? Because obviously, like I said, throughout that time, we had several that basically were family to us. So anywhere we went, they went, and still to this day, they come out and hang and so forth. And we're just like that pillar in their lives, and they turn to you and I for tons of advice and information and so forth. So it's awesome to be a blessing to someone else. Obviously, when I was a lot younger, I was just like, I have no idea how Jerome thinks that I can maintain our children. And he's literally just pulled up before other kids. Like, I have no idea. But we used to cater our entire lives to this mentoring as well. I can remember even when we went to go get a new truck or something, we was always keeping in mind that not only did our kids have to fit, but we have other extended family members now that may have to come with us a lot of places. So even if we got furniture or something, we would say, well, what about such and such? We got to make sure it's enough room in case he come over, you know, in case they come hang for the weekend and things of that nature. And like you said, it's crazy because society will label them in that direction to say, especially where we come from, to say, hey, that they are troubled teens and that they are basically no child left behind in the school systems and so forth. But we always saw like a totally different side of them. They would come to our home and basically, you know, hi, Miss Ebony, anything you need me to do, Miss Ebony? They would grab bags. They would just have such a different personality once they were removed from that environment. So then we slowly started learning that maybe environment and things that they were facing day to day was a huge piece of some of the struggles that they were having every time they were placed back into those environments specifically.
Yeah, and we found out a lot of times they just needed structure. I was a no tolerant, no nonsense type person, and they needed that. And also, had the support of you, and I had the support of the family, and there's certain stuff that we didn't play. I remember you having conversations with them about, what you should be doing and what you're going to tolerate, what you're not going to tolerate. And sometimes, people don't know. They were in a household where their parents might not tell them nothing, if they even got both parents. A lot of them just had single moms, and they would come and go and let the child do whatever they please. And then if the child didn't do what they asked them, all of a sudden, he's a problem now. You just had to take the time to really get to know them. And, I really enjoyed doing it. I really loved doing it, especially after my brother had got killed in 2007. That really hurt me, and that really made me, like, I felt as though I couldn't sleep. I had to sit there and work harder. I had to sit there and make sure that these children know that somebody cares, that they could do other things besides be a victim of the street. So that's what I sit there and, put my all into it, to sit there to try to make a difference. I can't change everybody's lives, but the ones, again, that's going to sit there and listen and take that, then, I feel as though I got something accomplished. I had a client, he went into the military. I got another couple of clients that, constantly keep in contact on Facebook, calling me Mr. Jerome, and, things like that. And they said, I'm doing good. They're doing good. They got children and stuff like that. I like hearing stories like that. And, they're being successful, being good citizens, and they got a second chance to sit there and do something to, make something of themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I used to always, again, joke and say, like, Jerome, we cannot save the entire world, because you go out there with your cape on. And the one thing that just made it so amazing to me throughout the process is we would never really speak on these things. Like you said, we would spend so much money at that time per month just to make sure not only was our family and our kids good, but anything that they basically needed, anything that they came to us with. And I know nowadays it's big with social media, and I know you've never been big on social media, but I see some people that, always post every time they do something for someone, or, anytime that they contribute to a child or have a giveaway or something. And you are really big on not putting these kids' faces and what their situation is and kind of exploiting it for pictures or recognition or for social media or anything like that. Like, it was just literally 15 years of something that just from the bottom of your heart, you kind of just went out and took these families in and basically never even spoke a word of it. It just almost became like your everyday. You would just get off of work and make sure they were good. Just get off of work and the next day, make sure they didn't need anything. If they had an argument with their parents and their mom called saying, can you speak to them? You would get off of work and stop past there. Just make sure, they went to school today and that they finished their homework and things of that nature. So I definitely applaud you. It's just amazing. And again, I am not from the situation where I would even think that would be something possible for me to be able to take on. I was definitely one of those people that was like, I have no idea how Jerome does this. Like, it's almost impossible to be able to manage all of this every day. So kudos to you for all that you've done in the community. I know all of those brothers are super happy to have you a part of their lives. Like you said, a lot of them are older now. They're still doing really, really good, and they still lean on you for a lot of guidance and so forth. So even though you formally don't take in new mentorship clients, you still have several that you tend to, and then it comes out. And like you said, now we had some one of your clients that called to say, can their daughter be your grandbaby now? And we decided that that was okay. So we're taking in grandchildren and everything. So it's just awesome. It's just an extension of our family, and we actually love it. You know, the kids love it. It's new cousins, god brothers, and so forth for them as well. So it's just an amazing piece that a lot of people don't know about your story.
And I wanted to say too, you know, it's definitely a kudos to you as well, because, you know, I had to have a strong woman with, you know, days that I had to go out and, you know, like you said, I'm leaving my regular job to go to this job, you know, you're tending to the kids and stuff like that. So again, you need that kind of person to be able to hold you down. And as a family, that's how it's supposed to be. So I definitely give you a kudos, and, you know, just bringing up the kids and taking care of the house, and, you know, just doing whatever you had to do. When I came in the house, it was always a meal there waiting for me. No matter what time I got home, it was always a meal. And, you know, like I was appreciative of that. Again, you know, that's something you could build on, because you could have somebody that doesn't see that vision, and they're just like, you know, whatever, do your thing, you know, and stuff like that. But you was there, so I got to give you a kudos as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's a good segue to go into the main question that we always get, besides how did we meet. Everybody wants to know how we started in business. How do we get into the real estate industry? How do we start as real estate investors? And I would say, to sum up our family, to sum up our marriage, the way we raise our children, is basically almost a perfect blend between righteousness and ratchetness. Like, literally. There's really no other way to describe us. Like, we have a very traditional style of parenting and how we go about our relationship and our life partnership and so forth. But that's probably maybe 40% of it. And 50% of it, we kind of, whatever comes our way, especially with all the crazy ideas that I have, everything that I get you involved in, Jerome pretty much goes with the flow with everything. So I always say that no matter what, everything over here, we're gang over here. When you want to do something, Jerome is in, I can literally come to you and say, you know, I have this idea, I want to do this, and it may be something that any other person, if I even revealed that to them, would probably think I was absolutely insane. And you're the only person in my life that will be 100% with it. Like, not only with it, but you'll immediately want to know, what do I have to do to support it? Like, what do I have to, just tell me what I need to do. Do you need me to leave work early? Do you need me to start saving more? Do you need me to start stacking and doing more overtime? Like, tell me, you need me to get the kids over to sports. Like, just tell me what you need me to do on my end to make whatever idea you have happen. And then when we sit down with our kids and explain to them, like, hey, this is what we plan on doing. Like, we've always been really big on being transparent and just getting everybody involved. Like, we plan on renting another property. We plan on purchasing a property. This is what we're going to have to go through to do it. These are the steps that we have in mind. And I noticed that once we started preparing the children as well, then everyone was on board. We didn't have them thinking in a negative light, as if, you know, well, then we're going to have to move and my friends are not going to be here and things of that nature. Like, they were always with everything as well. They were with 100% on any business venture that we did, any ideas. Like, by the time we broke it down to them, then the kids were 100% all in. So basically, I wanted to go into kind of how we started in the real estate industry, the millions, and I mean millions on millions of sacrifices that we made to build this empire that we have that is still growing. A lot of people want to know how we started off with our first investment property and kind of like some of the ins and outs of that as well. And just to piggyback on that, kind of like from the beginning. So we never lived with each other until we actually bought a house together and were engaged. So a lot of people assume because we used to be around each other all the time, and sometimes I would be at your place and you would be at my place, that we were living at one place, but we kind of stayed traditional with that. And until we were actually engaged and already about to plan our wedding, we never actually lived together. So that was a huge step for us. Because that's not kind of what people were doing at our age. A lot of people already lived with their girlfriends. A lot of people were already, in whole families with their girlfriends already, and we kind of still live separate. So even though we hung with each other all the time and we were together, almost every day, that's very different than actually now full time. I've given up my apartment and now we are living together, and not only living together, the first house that we've ever lived in together, we purchased. So we've never rented a home together or anything. So we went all the way in from day one, basically.
Something, I got something funny about that too. And I was just now thinking, and I remember when you was actually looking to move. And when I asked you, where were you looking to move? You was like, Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Philadelphia? Yeah. I was like, hey, I was like, how am I gonna see you in Philadelphia? And you was like,
we both have cars, so.
Yeah. You was like, we both got cars. I'm like, no. I was like, I can't let her go to no Philadelphia, So, it was just funny how things turned around. And also when you was considering the moving now in Baltimore, you was like, well, you can move with me. What did I say? I was like, we got to move in a house together where I can have my name on it too.
Yeah, when nobody wanted to move to anybody else's apartment. Like,
yes.
You had your own place and I had my own apartment across town. Mm-hmm. It was definitely an absolute not on the table at all that I move into your place or you move into my place. It was A-okay. Well, we could stay with each other all week. Like at that time, I think basically like almost every strand of clothes that I had in my closet was probably at your place. Like we kept a lot of stuff there and vice versa, but everybody still had their separate places. So if I wanted to go home at any given time, I could turn around and go home. And you could turn around and go home. So even the day that we actually closed on our first house together, we still 100% had our own separate places. So that was kind of like off the table. So like I said, even though we hung together all the time and we spent a lot of time together, we were both super nervous about making that move because we were already super like two independent people. Like you kind of had a lot going on your end. I had a lot going on my end. I was working, I was in school. You were working, just coming home from the military, doing all this mentorship and a whole bunch of other things. And I was just like, we both agreed that it was a no to move into somebody else's place. Like we were very stern on, if we were going to move forward, then it was definitely going to move forward on a place that was ours. Even though we were going all in from day one, it was just it had to be a place that was definitely our home. And that's a very true story. I do remember when I was going to just leave. But I've always been like that. I've always been like, look, you can just find me. You have a car, right? So, I'll be around. I'm gone. I have things to do. I have business plans. I have goals. Like, I've always been like that. So that's something that you've adjusted to and adapted to throughout the years because that's always been my personality. I mean, even when I said I was going to move several different places, you were just like, but how is that going to work, Ebony? Like, we are in a relationship now. And I was just like, well.
Yeah, I was saying in the back of my mind, I was like, she going to mess around, have one of these Philly dudes. I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, you was like, Ebony, that's not going to work. And I was just like, but yeah, it's going to work fine. And you were just like, Ebony, no. So that's when, at that time, I was already talking with a realtor because I was only 21 when we bought our first house together. Yeah. But when I was 18, I had my own apartment and I was looking to purchase another property. And the real estate agent that I was working with at that time, the transaction ended up falling through. But once I came to you and I was like, look, I'm about to buy a house. Like, I'm about to move forward. And you were like, buy a house? Like, where? And I was just like, look, I got this realtor. And immediately you were kind of like, well, why don't we just buy a house together? And at that time, it was the same thing. Like, wait a minute, Jerome. Like, buy a house together. Like, wait a minute. I know that we said we were dating now because we were friends for so long. So it's like that transition from being just friends to going over to dating seemed like it was so seamless. But it seemed like every second of it, I was trying to like pump the brakes a little bit. Like, wait a minute. I know we were friends, and now we said we were going to be dating, but now you saying that the house that I'm trying to possibly buy, you want to know if we can just buy it together. So then you said, well, have the realtor come over and meet with us. So that's basically what she did. I remember she came over to your place, and we sat around the kitchen table, and she kind of introduced herself to you and so forth. And I didn't specifically have a home picked out yet. I had just kind of started the process from previously when I was going to purchase at 18, and that transaction that fell through. She was really good and worked with me, and was very knowledgeable and so forth. So I decided to obviously give her a call back. So I'm not sure if you remember, what you probably do. Once she met with us that evening, you were basically like, oh yeah, let's move forward then. Let's buy a house together. And I was still like, this guy is lying, because I was just so used to, like, I'm from Baltimore. Even though you had traveled the world and you're from Baltimore as well, at that point I felt like, look, I never went outside of the country at 16. Everybody I know lies, steals, cheats, all of that. I don't know good people here. Like, I know a small amount of people that, mean well. Most of the time, in my experience, and it's just really sad to say that mindset, and a lot of people in our town still has that mindset. But I used to literally feel like, I don't believe a word this guy is saying out of his mouth. And anytime that I'm asked, like, what makes Jerome different? And I'm just like, things were just different from the beginning. I can tell like a billion stories on what sets you aside from everybody else, because even at that time, I was just like, this guy is not about to buy a house with me. I'm about to call this realtor on the side and do my own thing, because he is like full of it. And then every time it was time to meet with us, she was like, oh, I'm gonna be out for work by 4 o'clock. I'll be there. Like, you were at every home, every showing. And it was just like, oh, he's serious. Like, he's absolutely not playing about this. So once we went through the pre-approval process together and so forth, I'm not sure if it was exactly prior to or somewhere in the middle of it, because we were kind of like talking about being engaged at that time. And I know somewhere in the middle of the process, you were just like, well, when I get off of work on Tuesday, I'm going to pick you up so we can go get rings. And I was just like, get who a ring? And you were just like, I'm going to get you a ring when we get off. We're about to get engaged so we can get married. And I was just like, this guy, like, I know. I was just like, you know what? I'm going with the flow along with this also, because I've never seen a person like, he's been telling me the truth so far, so I'm just going to go with the flow of it. And my friends at the time was basically like, girl, go get your ring size. Go see what your ring size is. Like, everybody was trying to rush me to the mall, because I was like, I have no idea what my ring size is. And everybody was trying to rush me to the store, rush me to the mall, and basically say like, girl, he is serious. And the entire time, I just was like, when I see him pull up and take me and we go to the jewelry store and this become real and I see him get on one knee, then that's when I would believe it, because I don't believe a word of anything, because it's just still, everything was just happening. And it's not like you were being untruthful. It was just like, is this really happening? Like, I hadn't met anybody in my life at that time that was just like, so consistent and so persistent on everything. And that's kind of how we got into our first property. Like, once we bought our first property, we knew at that time that we were going to not stay there long. Like, we knew that we were going to possibly just get our feet in the door, so we can try to renovate it to sell it quickly. So I don't know if you recall some of that, if you want to speak on it, but I know that was initially 100% our plan.
That was initially, we went in, boots hit the ground. We went in running. We was in there working all the time. Emily coming up with ideas. Next thing I know, she had somebody measuring to put a countertop and, redoing the kitchen, the floor. She the one that taught me how to tile. She was down the basement one day tiling the floor, and I'm sitting there looking at her. And next thing I know, she was teaching me how to tile the floor. I never tiled the floor a day in my life. So I started changing out the stuff in the ceiling. I mean, we did a complete 180.
Actually, even through like a paint party, like the same day that we closed on the property, like that weekend, it was like a Friday or something. So like all day Saturday, we had like a paint party where people came over and helped us paint. And then I think that we stayed at my apartment, because I still had my apartment at the time. And then we had you stay over at the property while new carpet was being delivered and being installed and so forth.
And let me add on that. Ebony picked out the whitest carpet, but something, our carpet, people couldn't believe how clean it was, and we had children. Like our carpet was white, but it stayed picture perfect clean. Like it was completely clean.
And we also had a huge bill for the carpet cleaners that used to come in all the time. They weren't expensive, but they came frequently. So we made sure that at any given time that not only was it clean, because it was naturally clean, but it was white carpet. So we always had basically the carpet cleaning company on speed dial to come in to make sure everything stayed immaculate while we lived there. Because again, our focus was 100% that this was a starter home for us. And like I said, at that point, I was 21 when we purchased the home. And I believe you were 25 or 26 at the time. And we knew that we could afford more of a home, but we kind of were still a little like, let's be safe. Like, this is our first property and we're just basically engaged at this point. Like, we weren't married yet. We were just going all in. We both, at that point, we had completely moved from separate places, and it wasn't that we were afraid to move forward with each other. It's just that we had never combined, bills and anything at that time. So everything was just going to be like, how much is the phone bill going to be here? How much is the gas and electric going to be here? Like, how much will the cable be? And what will we need to get done, and furniture and so forth? And again, our mindset was that we were going to completely almost renovate this property. So, I mean, at that time, we were super young, making a lot of money at that time. I think, at 21, we were just still doing really, really good for ourselves. Like, you had your own career, I had my own career. I was working in the nursing field. And then at one point, I was even inspired by some of the mentoring that you were doing, and I kind of picked up an extra shift, working with children with special needs not far from our home. And we were like 21 years old and 25 years old doing like over $20,000 a month, but we were still super, super nervous. Like, we were just kind of, I remember us sitting at the closing table, and you had given me your Mervo class ring right before we had went out the door. And I was kind of like, what is this for? And you were just like, I just want you to have it. So I wore your Mervo class ring to our closing. And I remember the mortgage company had told us prior to, like a week or two before, they told us that our mortgage payment was going to be like $1,000. And I remember when we got to the table to sign, ended up being like $1,100. And that extra $100, like, you looked at me and I looked at you, and you were basically like, gave me the look like, are we doing it? And I was just like, let's do it. And then we basically started signing. But long story short, the reason why we rented that property and really put our time and dedication into it, and I actually tried to buy it back twice after we sold it, because I actually loved that property. Like, it was a really, really good piece of property on a good piece of land. The kids always say that was the funnest house that we've ever lived in. We used to just basically, while we did renovations, we pretty much just enjoyed ourselves. We planned our wedding while we was there. We had tons of events. While we lived there, we were always having cookouts, having people over, having guests at the house. Jerome is a big entertainer, which I am not, but we'll get to that piece a little later on. So Jerome was always really big on having friends over. And if you've ever been to any of our events, then he caters to everyone. He wants to make sure.
We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good time.
We're going to have a great time. You're going to be well fed. You're gonna have plenty of drinks there. You're gonna have plenty of food available. I mean, all kinds of foods, not just hors d'oeuvres. I mean, you're gonna be fed when you're here. Good music, and he's gonna make sure that everybody is basically make sure that they feel like they're at home. So that's basically what we did. We just like literally tried to make the best of it. We knew that we were going to be renovating. We did the kitchen. We did strip kitchen cabinets. Like you said, I was always laying tile. And that was my first time ever doing something like that. I kind of self-taught myself how to lay tile. And I remember, like you said, you came home and I had redone the whole kitchen floor. I had retiled the entire floor.
Yeah.
I retiled one of the bathroom floors, and I mean, I was just changing out all types of things to really get this home prepped and ready for, you know, the future, for us to not only enjoy it with our kids while we were there, but in that short amount of time, get it ready for resale.
We also, too, I wanted to talk about, we redid the driveway, and when we got the driveway done, we didn't do asphalt, we did concrete. So anybody that knows the difference between asphalt and concrete, we did that. We did the whole walkway up to the house. We even created a part from the driveway to the steps.
We added a walkway.
So we did a lot.
And we often sometimes even drive back past there to kind of see, because like I said, I tried to purchase that property back twice and got outbid by investors, other local investors in Baltimore, but I absolutely adored that property. So the long and short of things of how we got started in real estate is because when we purchased our first property, we basically used it as an investment property going in the door. Like, even though we live there, a lot of people don't understand, or they may not have the knowledge that basic FHA loans, you only are required to own or occupy the property for 1 year. And even at that time, me not being a real estate professional at the moment, you know, I was just all over it. Like, I've always been someone that's like big on getting information and educating myself. And I mean, at 21 years old, I was doing my research. So when I found out that we only, by law, I had to live in this house for 1 year, I was fair game. All I wanted to do was just make sure we fix it up, make sure we do any updates that we need, and get whatever funds that we needed to get out of it so we can quickly move on. And that property was actually in East Baltimore. And one day we came home from work and I noticed that a house next door to us, because we were basically in a duplex, the house next door to us had went on the market. And when I went on Zillow at that time to see how much that home was listed for, I immediately called you and was like, Jerome, we're listing. We're getting out of here. And as usual, any crazy idea I have, Jerome was fair game. He was like, okay, let's do it. So I feel like it was like a matter of weeks before we end up putting that house on the market, calling our other realtor back, the same realtor that helped us purchase the property. And when we put the house on the market and we sold it, we end up making about $100,000 off of that property from the renovations that we have done and so forth. And the market, and this was in 2005, so the market was just booming at that time. It was a huge seller's market. Obviously, many may know, not too far before the housing crash really came into fruition. But we definitely monopolized off of everything that was happening at that time, and used those funds in order to get our second property. And during that transition, once we got our second property, that is, we had that home built from the ground up in Baltimore County. So in the process of having that home built and going through that process, I mean, we were both, again, still so young, and everybody was saying, like, I don't even know a person your age that has ever had a house built from the ground up before. And that was just an amazing experience for us, being able to like pick out all the fixtures, pick out where we wanted the lighting, pick out our land and so forth. But in the process of selling our other home, just to talk about some of the sacrifices that we made and that we had to speak with our children about while we were building that home and we sold our other home, we basically didn't have another home in between. So what we decided to do was get a rental property on a month-to-month basis. And I believe we stayed there maybe like 3 or 4 months, because it took about 6 months or so to build the house. And it was definitely a challenge for us. I mean, we had to, again, have another conversation with the children and just let them know, like, hey, and keep taking them across down the road to the other property so that they can see, like, this is going to be our new home. So with us being able to explain everything to them and let them know that this is just a stepping stone in our family's future and our family's success, we really didn't get a lot of flack from the children either. I mean, we pretty much in that rental property for the 3 months that we lived there, I remember just having like a staging area, what you call it, where we had like just all of our boxes set. Like, I mean, the living room, I think, was just all storage. Like, we just literally use it as storage. It's just furniture and boxes and so forth. And everybody as a family just kind of teamed in together to just make it as comfortable as possible for us, and just looking for the future that we knew that, you know, brighter days in just a few more months was coming when our other house was done. So do you want to speak a little bit about some of those sacrifices during that time, in addition to some of the crazy ideas that we had to do in order to make those achievements? Because I know with us nowadays being real estate professionals, we have so many people that will ask us, how did we start out in real estate? And people just kind of see the end of the road. Nobody sees the sacrifice that we made, and nobody wants to be uncomfortable. And we just say all of that to say that it was a plenty of times throughout, you know, this whole partnership, throughout, you know, building our businesses and so forth, that we were uncomfortable and our kids were uncomfortable. And we would just come up with all kind of creative ways to make sure that we were making the best out of it. Like, sometimes we would just go get a hotel for a weekend and just take them out to swim. I know at one point the entire family got their fishing license, and we would go out to the water and just fish sometimes early in the morning and make a day out of that, and just kind of make it like anything that we could to not seem like now we're all crammed in this home. We just sold our other house, and now, you know, we have boxes piled from the floor to the ceiling in the living room. And just kind of getting everybody on board and those ultimate sacrifices that we had to make in order to grow our business.
I mean, you pretty much hit it on the head. The sacrifices to do that move, it was just, we had to make sure everybody was on board, everybody was comfortable. And like you said, we would do things like go out for the weekend, stay at a hotel, go to amusement parks, you know, things like that, to sit there and keep us, you know, keep the children still active and things like that, because we know we was in tight quarters, you know, at the rental property. So, I mean, we did what we had to do. I even remember that we moved boxes out of that living room, and we had like a Super Bowl party. It was just like 3 people, but we, you know, we had a Super Bowl party there, and you know, we was watching, and everybody knew that wasn't our situation. It's not like,
and shout out to all our friends that came to that Super Bowl party. You're actually crazy for coming to sit on boxes. I think we had like maybe like a 75-inch TV that we pulled from out the back, set that on some boxes, like ordered all of these hot wings and so forth. So anybody that even attended that party, clearly you're just as crazy as we are, because I can't believe that in those 3 months we attempted to have events and everything. Like, we just tried to keep everything as normal as possible. But we actually played charades that night. I mean, we had an amazing time, and it was, if we had, you know, a fly on the wall to take pictures that day, it was boxes taped up all around us, and we were just having an amazing time in there. So that's just some of the things that we did to try to, you know, pass the time and just kind of keep everybody motivated that it was better days coming ahead, and that we did have a plan, and not that, you know, we were just living here because, you know, something happened and we lost the house. Like, in order to get to that next step, it just always was some kind of sacrifice that we had to make. And it's hard nowadays asking people to make similar sacrifices, because again, everyone just sees the end of the road. So once we got into the second property, everybody just was like, oh my goodness, you guys, you know, just built this $500,000 home. I can't believe it. And all we were thinking was like, look, we just came out of sleeping in my boxes, all my clothes on the floor. Like, we didn't want to celebrate, you know, the end game. We had just been through a lot the past those 3 months, and we tried to make the best of it. And I think we did a really, really good job at doing that. But sometimes at that point, it just always kind of bothered us a little bit when nobody really saw all that we went through, you know, to make that achievement, because it wasn't easy, and especially doing that transition with children. Our jobs were, like you said, we had sometimes even the kids that you were mentoring was there. I mean, we were just crammed into this much smaller townhome that we had ever lived in. I mean, obviously having one bathroom, the children were absolutely going crazy. That was probably like the worst experience for them. And I know sometimes we try to bring them back down to earth, like, you know, plenty of people have one bathroom. But coming from a home that they had, you know, more than one bathroom, and then knowing at the other house that we were going to have like 5 bathrooms, they just were like, please, 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 we cannot, you know, all of our kids are athletes and they constantly, you know, are eating and growing, and everybody, I think the hardest thing during that time was probably the one bathroom. Other than that, everybody pretty much coped very well with the transition, getting into our second property. So that was just a great experience for us all together, just to see like, and honestly, it made us appreciate a lot more when we did the work ourselves. So when we started doing some of that work ourselves and kind of learning and training, and I even remember some of our neighbors in the first house, when they saw that we were a young couple and we were out there, you know, boots on the ground doing everything, and they saw us trimming the hedges and putting flower beds in and putting mulch down. I remember neighbors were like all in. They gathered around us and basically said, anything you need, because I don't think we had a lawnmower at that time. We barely had a screwdriver, and like we had basic toolkits and things. And everybody kind of pitched in and was like, whatever you need, we'll definitely be there to assist you guys. We were just a young couple. I mean, from day one, we were just a super young couple on the move. Like we just didn't focus on anything that anybody else was doing. We were just super focused on whatever we set our mind to. We just were achieving it back to back to back. Like we stuck to the plan. Whatever we discussed, if anything that needed any adjustments on the plan, we would go speak to each other about it and kind of let the kids know, like, hey, this is what the next thing that we need to do in line. And it just felt like to us, as long as everybody was on board, then we can almost achieve anything together. And that's basically what we attempted to do.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. You got to be on board with your partner. So y'all got to come up with a plan. Ebony was famous for doing 5-year plans. So it's like on top of, you know, we're doing this, she already got the idea for the next thing. So we're never stopping. We're constantly sitting there, you know, pushing ourselves to do more. It's like excellence, you know, like, okay, we did this, let's do something else. And Ebony's been big on that. And it's definitely we've been winning off of it, you know. I could even think of, if you go back to the first house, like you said, we was making a lot of money, but we didn't have all the things that we should have to show for it. And she came up with
structured with it then. Like we were definitely young and enjoying life. Like we were focused. I mean, and don't get me wrong, we were more focused than probably any other person that we knew at our age. But we were definitely still enjoying it a lot as well. Like we would easily just go out to sit at a restaurant and our bill would be, you know, $500 and $600. I mean, we were letting our kids and all the kids you were mentoring order lobster and steak. We were letting them do almost anything. I mean, we were taking vacations, and even though we weren't like huge travelers, basically just anything we wanted to do, because we were always really big on saving, and that was something, you know, you already came into the door and was really good with money management. I was really good at money management, and then when we put us both together, and the income that we were making at that time and the structure that we had at that time, it was just like the freedom to do all types of things. We were pretty much taking advantage of it. I mean, we would go get cars with TVs, rims, spinners. I mean, I think our first house probably had like 15 flat screens in it. Even people were asking us, like, do you guys have a flat screen hookup or something like that? And we were like, no.
And this is when flat screen TVs first came out.
That's so, really big, where really nobody had a flat screen in their property.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
so
again, I'm 25 years old, you in your 20s, and you know, we just had an empire already that we were building. And we were like, after that property, we started realizing, like, look, it's a lot of money coming into this house. Like, we are working our tails off. And we were pretty much both not people that really went out much. Like, we were both pretty structured. So I always say that what kind of creates to me that power couple and the motivation and so forth that we had to achieve this, you know, building this empire together is because when you came in the door, you already, you know, was coming back from the military. You already had, you know, discipline. You were super focused already and already kind of had some goals and a plan. And then on the other end, I was like almost exactly parallel. Like I was literally on board with starting businesses. I was on board with, you know, anything that we needed to do. And, you know, I was always big on saving, make sure that we had everything that we needed as far as for our families. And even sometimes when I was thinking like, you know, we would go to the grocery store when we had the big pantry at one of our homes. And I would literally say, well, you know, I usually was raised where we get like a lot of, you know, we stockpile. And then you were like, oh yeah, well, I stockpile too. And then when I saw that you were on board with, you know, it was okay. You didn't think I was crazy because I bought 20 bleaches. Then you were like, oh yeah, let's get 20 bleaches. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of how we were both on the same page about a lot of things. And that's kind of once we came together, it just literally just went crazy. I mean, we literally were able to soar in business and marriage and relationship and family, like literally so easily, because we just were always on the same page. Whenever I came to you with something, you were always like 100% on board. And I always like to put a disclaimer in there to say, you know, a lot of times when I'm having conversation, when I'm doing some of my finance consultations, I'll say that, you know, we were in a situation where you were always 100%, you know, our provider, meaning you took on most of our bills, even though both of us worked all the time, most of the time, and I'm not even gonna say most of the time, even to this day, you always covered all of our bills with your income. You usually paid all the bills in the house. You always covered the mortgage. You always covered the car payments, like anything that it was, you always covered. And I always will joke and say, like, Jerome really does not care about money like that. Like, he likes us to be able to have money, have us to live a comfortable life. But you can literally have a lottery check that comes in the mail for $100,000 and you'll sit it on the table and say like, hey, Ed, this check for $100,000 came. I don't know what we got to do with it. And then you'll literally just walk away. Like, he never checks his bank account. He never sees what's going on. But the full disclaimer is the reason why you're that way is because you know that everything that had to do with our finances was in good hands. Now, if on the other end, I was taking the payments and taking the paychecks and going out, you know, at the Gucci store and
we got a problem.
You have a problem. So
yeah, we got a problem.
Say, don't get it twisted. It's not that Jerome is literally like, oh, you can just take all my money and do everything, even though you're working. You don't have to pay bills. Like, no, it wasn't like that. When we did it and we structure our life like that, it literally helped us not only achieve our goals, but take everything to the next level. Because if one person was covering all the bills, now we had another person that had a full income that was able to make sure those countertops got put in, to make sure our savings was getting stacked. Like, we could turn around and easily have $40,000 in the bank and be like, I mean, all the bills are covered. We got all this money in the bank and we're renovating this property because we decided to not work against each other and say, well, you worry about half of this and you worry about half of that. Because at that point, you know, we were already raising a family. We were already, you know, fully in on what the goal was and what we wanted to achieve. So we never ever looked at it like that. We never saw each other as if like, this is mine and this is his. Like, it's just, we were both on board that once we decided to come together as one, and that's exactly what we did. Everything was one. As long as everybody was on the same page, I knew that you were super responsible, you know, with our finances. You knew that I was super responsible with our finances. And the number one rule that I always say is, even though Jerome doesn't check his bank account, hardly ever, even though he doesn't log on to his bank account, he doesn't go online, he doesn't swipe, he doesn't go to the mall, he doesn't charge anything on Amazon. But 100%, when it's time for you to go to Sam's Club to get you something to eat, or say you wanted to get a little rotisserie chicken, you want to stop at the mall to get something, or you have a taste for something, as long as that bank card works, then we still on good terms. Everything is still good. But if you go to the store and now all of a sudden the swiping isn't working, then now we probably have an issue. But we're always like really good on things like that. And like I said, when we decided to kind of work in that fashion, it kind of really helped us build. And we noticed that we were able to achieve so much more by not, looking at each other as if like, this is hers, this is mine, and things of that nature. I covered this bill, she covered that bill, and just kind of really pull everything together as one, and really two people putting 100% together, and not that 50-50 stuff that people talk about.
You gotta do it as a team. And like you said, if you're letting one person, they're able to sit there and sustain and take care of the other bill, why not let the other person, like, you're paying cash for this stuff. So, people got to look at it like that. It's not like we're charging it. No, you're paying cash for cash for the vacation, cash for the repairs on the house, cash for the repairs on the car. Like, we don't have to go back and worry about it because you're paying it off right when it's done.
Mm-hmm. I know one thing my dad would always say to me, like, that 50-50 stuff that people say in relationships is all, like, I don't know who started it, I don't know where it came from, but if one person is only putting out 50% and the other person is only putting out 50% of themselves, then where's the other 50% of that person going to? So you mean that I'm only giving you 50% of me? So where is my other 50%? I still have it there lingering to give, and hopefully, it's something that both people have to be putting 100% in. Like, I'm all in, you're all in. And once we started seeing that mind frame early on, and like you said, we used to literally sit down and set 5-year goals. Like, we used to sit down with each other every year on our anniversary and say, hey, what do we do this year that we want to continue to do? What did we do this year that we want to change? What went good for us? What went bad for us? And we would have those conversations with each other all the time. And then in the midst of it, I would have you write down a few things that you wanted to do to improve or kind of add to our lives. And then I would write down a few things that I wanted to do to improve or add to our lives. And like I said, anything that we attempted to do that didn't go so well, we would pretty much try to say, like, we're not going to do that again this year. We're going to step away from that a little bit. So we always came into it like super, super structured, as well as, raising our family and just being there for one another. We always had a plan. Like, we pretty much knew that we both wanted to be successful. We both wanted to educate our children and tell them the importance of being educated and being successful and being financially stable and so forth. So we kind of just always had that mindset. And I think that's a huge part of what worked for us, throughout the years, because we were always on board with, setting that plan and sticking to it and just working hard to achieve whatever our goals are. Because we didn't have any mentors. We learned from trial and error. Like, we didn't have a lot of people at all that we even knew at our age that were trying to do some of the things that we did. I don't even think we knew anybody at our age that was like a married couple at that time. Like, we didn't have, at 21, married friends. Like, everybody was kind of, still finding their way through life and doing their own thing. And we pretty much already had that set plan. Like, we already knew what we wanted to do in some of our goals. And getting into real estate and real estate investing and things of that nature definitely was not in the conversation of anybody that I was friends with or anybody that I knew. I don't even think we knew anybody other than, people that were a lot older than us at that time. So we started seeming like anybody that came around us that was probably 50 plus when we were in our early 20s, maybe they could give us a little bit of advice. But it just kind of turned into where we started being really, really private about what we were doing and what our plans was, because we really didn't purposely just want to hide it. It's just that we didn't have anybody to get advice from. We didn't see anybody.
People wasn't giving out that kind of advice to us. And I mean, people, some people think that we did have people giving it. We wasn't getting advice from anywhere. So like you said, it was trial and error. I mean, we had to learn a lot of stuff on our own. And that's why, we're opening up to sit there and, help people out. You might have questions. Eve is like an open book. You call her, people chat with her. I mean, all day long, her phone is ringing and she's giving people jewels on real estate and, the ins and outs and things like that. She's always willing to help. I'm willing to help. So, it's a different kind of person, because some people, they get to a certain point and they don't want to sit there and help the next man out. They don't want to sit there and give pointers. They don't want to sit there and give information. You want to know why? Because they don't want to never see nobody do stuff and do it better than them. I want to
It's
see my children
that you're
do.
gonna learn and become better. Where it's like you don't have to be afraid about that. It's enough money for all of us to have a good life, and we were basically looking to build that. So just to piggyback on where I always say, like, you were always really, really big on entertaining, and I was always the opposite. So that's another thing that I kind of had to adjust to in our relationship, because I didn't want to entertain. I didn't want to have a lot of people over. And Jerome pretty much, and I think not only did you get that from just your personality, but, you know, just being able to travel the world at such a young age, Jerome would give people way more of the benefit of the doubt than I would. Like, I would pretty much be like, Jerome, we don't know these people. And you would be like, oh, it's fine. I met here. He's a really good person. She's a really good person. And just your personality was always just so different from everything that I've ever known. So that was something that I had to adjust to over time. And I'm not sure if I ever really adjusted to it, how you're fully in, because I was always more reserved and kind of needed to know someone a lot better. And I mean, not just meet them at a gathering and have a few conversations with them and then say we know each other. Like, if you don't know my children's names, then you don't know me. Like, that's just how I used to see it. If I don't know your kids' names, then we don't know each other. We're not friends. So I always had to kind of take it to the next level and really get to know a person and kind of decide if I wanted that energy around me, if I wanted them around my kids and so forth. But I used to, give in and kind of relax to that a little bit, because I know that's what you were always big on entertaining and, bringing people around and, getting to know more people and kind of talking to more people and mentoring more people, not just, children, but mentoring other people that was interested in some of the things that we were doing and so forth as well. So that's just another adjustment that I had to make in our relationship, because we didn't have that at all. We didn't have anybody that was willing to step in and give us any advice. Tell us a little bit about now you being my husband, and now we have our real estate team and our real estate group, and now we're licensed professionals. Your experience having me as your team leader, having me as somebody that, has to guide you and kind of show you through the industry some of my knowledge, some of my information, and kind of almost, having your wife at some aspects as your boss throughout our real estate career, which not necessarily your boss. I know they were both self-employed, but that I pretty much handle a good amount of that business. But just talk a little bit about even having your wife as your business partner in general, because I know that that's not something for most couples to be able to handle and manage. So just what's a little bit about having me as your business partner?
Well, it's like a comfort zone, and it's also like, I guess, like you know me. It's like it's certain things I can handle that I might be good doing, and there's certain things that you might be good doing. So you know where they come in at. We play our lanes. Even as far as like with the properties we have now, you're more administrative, hands-on, talking and making the deals and stuff like that. I might go there for repairs and things like that. So it's like, I don't have no problem. We're like you said, we're both the same, but I understand my lane and I understand your lane. So I mean, if you're sitting there and you're trying to, you and your wife are trying to do stuff together, learn who's good at what, and you go from there. Don't get mad about, because she's talking to these people or trying to promote the business. Whoever's going to be more successful doing it, let them do it. I mean, I don't
sit off of each other's strong points. Like,
yes.
if that's if negotiating and doing a lot of the property management and the admin stuff and kind of, the bones of the business is my strong point. And then we have you there. Obviously, I don't know how to unclog a toilet. Even though I know, some things, I stay away from things of that nature. I do not know how to do minor electrical work. I do not know how to do plumbing work and things of that nature. And you're typically my guy. Like, if somebody calls and we need some assistance of things of that nature, and even just being more personable, because when it comes to our relationships with our tenants and so forth, we try to treat them, as if it's our house, but it's their home. So we want to make it comfortable for them. We want to make sure that they stay and enjoy themselves, and that we're not the landlords that are giving them a hard time and not trying to work with them and things of that nature. So anything we can do to try to make them comfortable, we're absolutely willing to do. And I know Sometimes because I handle most of the property management, our tenants will look at me as, the boss. And when I come around, they'll tighten up. But when they are around you, it kind of gives that yin and that yang, a balance, because, I might call you and you're, stopping past to do or check on a faucet or running toilet or something of that nature. And you're over there, just having a conversation, getting to know them, getting to know their children, hanging out with them, and so forth. So it kind of creates that balance, because when you come over, they can be a little more relaxed, because they don't necessarily, they know you're their landlord, but they necessarily don't see you in that aspect, versus if we were both kind of in that position, then it wouldn't be able to have that great balance when we're, doing, speaking with them and being able to be relatable. So that's kind of like the good balance with us with that as well.
And I also wanted to talk about on a real estate aspect of it. If you're not doing what Ebony's sitting there training you to do, then you're doing something wrong. I live with her. I watch the deal sit there and go through. I watch what she does. And like she said, some people, I might play crazy that I don't know what I'm, putting in or doing, but I'm sitting there taking notes every time. Her strategies, I sit there and use as my strategies. As a real estate agent, any deal that I put in, I actually got accepted, ratified contracts, and that's because of Ebony. So anytime when I'm hearing her sit there and talk to her numerous amount of mentees, I'm like, you better sit there and listen, because they don't know, all this work she put in. Her first year, she was the leading seller. Her first year. I mean, that's unheard of. And then, recently the team just got, recently got the most volume for, what was that? For what months was it again?
May and June for the McArthur group.
May and June for the McArthur group. So it's like I'm actually seeing this stuff, and I hear people, talking to her and things like that. And you better heed to what she's saying, because right now you're getting all the knowledge from this person that's going to be a future broker. Like, I can already see that, So I just wanted to, definitely appreciate you with your knowledge, the job knowledge you have. And, definitely tighten me up and getting me to where I needed to be at, because like I said, I might have messed around and didn't take it as seriously, because I work, other jobs, and I make good money and I do other things. But, something, I was like, why not sit there and take this real estate stuff seriously? And I watch it every day, and I can make my family, I can sit there and do so much, even more for my family, if I'm sitting there putting more for effort. So that's why I did it. I was like, something, I want my children to have anything they ever want. And anybody that know me, know how I am about my family. So at the end of the day, I don't ask for much, but I want my children and my wife and everybody to be happy. So definitely thank you as a leader, as a boss. I definitely thank you.
Thank you. And I know it's a lot of hard work, and I'm always in your ear about everything. And I'm always on the phone. I mean, even the kids are, like, you were on the phone all day. And sometimes it's like that. And I try to not make that my everyday. But, everybody wants to be a boss, and everybody wants to, run their own businesses until it's time to really do it. And they don't really understand the hard work that comes behind the scenes. And a lot of it is so behind the scenes that it's even unspoken or unheard, or unseen at plenty of times. Like, a lot of people just have no idea the hard work that comes behind the scenes with being 100% on board with raising your kids and being a wife, a mother, and running several businesses. So I'm really big on, God gave me 24 hours out of the day, and I try to use as much as possible. I do sleep because I don't function well if I'm extremely tired, but my sleep patterns, I can sleep for 45 minutes and I'm back up ready to go. Like, I can take me an hour nap and I'm back up ready to go. And whatever thoughts were in my mind, I can't even really rest for too long until I get certain things done. And this is just an industry where I saw early on that it was unlimited income potential. Like, it was literally a potential for us to achieve any and everything that we wanted to achieve. So early on, like I said, my parents always owned multiple properties. They always had, tenants. They always had commercial properties, investment properties. So that's kind of all I seen growing up and all I kind of knew. So when I thought about a way to be able to grow our business and build unlimited success and unlimited income for our family, then obviously real estate was just one of those things that I was more than willing to continue to deep dive in, and not just deep dive in on my own, but to educate you and our kids and as many people as I can on an industry that has afforded me a life that I never even dreamed possible. And we're still super young and have so many healthy, good years ahead of us to be able to do so much more. And it's just almost unbelievable in this small amount of time what we've been able to do and achieve through real estate. So whenever I post on social media and I say building wealth through real estate, I'm not saying that slogan because I'm just using it as a catchphrase. That is literally something that I believe and something that I live by on a regular basis. If we didn't own that first house and be able to get the income that we got out of that first property in order to get a second property, in order to live in that property and rent that property, and then in order to buy another one, like we're making money off of residually off of properties that we purchased, years ago. And sometimes the rent that we can get from a lot of those properties is more than what people make on a monthly basis. So, I mean, just looking at the numbers and so forth, it's just been able to put us on a next tier of, all of our goals and everything that we wanted to achieve. So it's just an industry that I love. If you know me, then you know I'm all things real estate, all things finance and investments. And I've just kind of always been like that. So I want to, again, thank you for being able to see that in such a young female, because I was always like super, super private. So nobody really got to know who I really was. So even back then, you took the time and the opportunity to really get to know me and to have conversations with me. And I can remember, I used to do a lot of things on my own. And you had come to me one day and was like, Ebony, you can't just get in your car and go up to Ocean City just because you felt like it. Like, you have to tell somebody. You have to tell somebody, because sometimes I would just get in the car, drive to Ocean City on a Sunday, get some ice cream, get a snowball. Like, I literally just always lived in my own lane. And until you brought that to my attention, sometimes I didn't even realize that I was that much in my own lane. So I know you used to come to me and say, like, you cannot just do that. Like, you have to tell somebody where you are. You have to tell somebody where you're going. So those are just some habits that I am constantly working on myself to better and to try to break, because I don't always want to seem as if like we're so super private. It's just not even really being super private. It's just that we are just always so focused. So we just don't even have time to think about what everybody else is doing or what anybody else has going on. Because when we decided to build our family and when we decided to start our futures together, it's just really pretty much, I mean, taking on, having 4 kids and taking on, tons of other children throughout our relationship and so forth. It's really just not an easy thing to be able to do when you're not focused and you're not consistent. Like, if we had all types of other things going, like, I don't even really see a lot of time to be able to go out and, have all these kind of parties and go hang outside. So that's why we would bring a lot of it to our home, because then our kids would be here. People knew that our kids were right in the house when we would have people over to have cookouts. Our kids were here when we, had our anniversary parties or our birthday gatherings, and then we would have all the theme parties that everybody loved. And at some points we had got to the point where we would have like 200, 300 people in our house, all, no angry, no fighting, no angry people, no.
Just having a good time.
Like, just having a good time. And that was almost unheard of. So it had become almost a tradition to come to Eb and Rome's house, on New Year's or things of that nature, to kind of just fellowship with us. And we kind of just made that a tradition with our kids, and just had our family here to just create more memories for them, because we didn't have a lot of time to go outside and do a lot of things. We try to support, as many things as we possibly can. But, when you're trying to build businesses and you're really focused on doing a lot of things, then sometimes that time slips away from you. And when we do have downtime, we all know that Rome's favorite thing to do is literally just stay home. Like, anytime that plans can be canceled, That's Rome's favorite thing in the world. If plans are canceled and he can just stay home, chill with his family, watch a movie, that is his favorite thing to do in the entire world. So the pandemic has not bothered Jerome at all. Jerome is enjoying the pandemic. He wants nobody to call him to invite him to anything. He's very happy that everything is canceled right now. Because even though we like to support, his favorite thing to do after a long day's work and spending time with the children and so forth, and all of their sports. I mean, our kids are big sports people, so we usually are, 7 days a week on the football field, soccer field, basketball court. Jerome coaches for our son's high school. So, I mean, all the practices. So this is basically like really well-deserved downtime for us. And it's unfortunate that we have to see it that way, but we just kind of live that life of just always, staying busy, always have stuff going on. So we really enjoy that downtime, with each other, even though we're always with each other, but at least we're, just chilling and not, every moment is preoccupied.
Did you want to talk, I don't know, did you want to talk about the move that we had to do when we moved to this house, or just the sacrifice?
We didn't even get to that yet. I mean, it's so much stuff. We didn't even get to that yet. But I mean, sure, if you want to go into it, you can speak a little bit on that as well.
But I did want to piggyback. I also wanted to talk about as TMG Homes. TMG Homes, how we worked as a team with that. Ebony, she picks out wonderful homes. She, I think I was at work that day in Baltimore. So she sit there like, hey Rome, might want to check, see how this house looked. Thinking about, putting in a bid for it. So I go check the house out, and I'm like, Ebony, I was like, the window unlocked. I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and go actually.
The only catch to the property is that we couldn't get inside, so we had to buy it sight unseen. So yes. only me would send you a home that I want to buy it, but I can't get inside of it.
Yeah. So I sit there and I called Eb. I was like, I'm over there looking at it. The outside look good. I don't see that much damage. I'm looking through the windows. I'm like, it don't look that bad. So I called Eb. I was like, Eb, the window open, and I'm about to go ahead and go check it out. She was like, Rome, don't get caught going in there. You know how she is. And I was like, I'm going in there. So I go in there, and I'm like, Ebony, I was like, this house not in bad condition at all. And other than that, we put the bid in. We won. We got our team in there. We're working on it. And the thing about TMG, we're doing homes, but we're doing homes as if, we was going to live in it. So we're not just doing anything. We're sitting there putting our touch on it. And that's what we want to do as far as like homes in Baltimore. We want to put our touch on it to make people feel at home when they come in, to have nice stuff like that. And I mean, trust me, we're putting money into it, and we're making it a certain kind of way, because every time you see a TMG home, it's going to be done a certain kind of way to make you feel at home. You got anything to add on that, Ed?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's super important to me, not only as a business goal, but as a personal goal, because these properties that we are renovating for buy and hold in order to get tenants in, that we are making these properties luxury rentals. Like, we could literally take some of these homes and just slap some paint on them, put some new light fixtures up and get someone inside of them, because they're really, not in super bad condition when we purchase, but instead we're literally doing full renovations on these properties. And the reason why this is so near and dear to my heart is because most of the tenants that we accept are through Section 8 housing programs. And that's just super important to me, because as a young mom, initially, and I believe this was probably like in 1996 or so, maybe 1997, someone had told me to put my name on a Section 8 housing list. And years later, years have passed. I think probably maybe even 7 or 8 years had passed, and I had never been called on the list. I had already had 2 apartments that I had rented, and I had already purchased our first home. Jerome and I had already owned a home when they went to call me back. So I never took advantage of utilizing the program. But I remember when they initially said that my name had came up on the list, I would meet down in Baltimore, downtown Baltimore, with other young moms, and they would take us out to different complexes and so forth and show us the opportunities. And a lot of these ladies that I was meeting at that time, again, were young moms. They really didn't have transportation and were going through a lot of things. And all I could think about is how long most of us have been on this waiting list. And by the time my name actually came around where they said that my voucher was able to be utilized, I had already owned a house. So I never got a chance to even be a part of the GREAT program or do anything of that nature, because I end up just moving forward on my own and going into home ownership on my own. So once we were able to get a lot of that achieved and do it successfully, once I decided to, you know, get my hands into real estate, then I immediately went back to that program in order to give back. So this is super near and dear to my heart. Most of the properties that we renovate, I usually hold exclusively for voucher holders of this very, very specific program. So I like to make sure that, again, it's nice for them. I don't want to put, you know, single moms with children or anything of that nature into properties that are not up to the utmost standards of a property that I was going to put my own children in. So when I explained this to Jerome, and he knew a little bit about, you know, that with my story early on, then again, he was 100% on board with us making these luxury homes and making sure that these rental properties were our house, but it was their home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so the renovation that we have coming out now with the next property, I mean, that's going to be awesome. Like, we can't wait. We've had tons of COVID delays, but that's a part of business. So as much as I have to go back and forth with our contractors, again, it's just another one of those situations where, you know, being a boss is not easy. I feel like almost every day of the week, I have a headache every time I have to call one of the contractors to go back and forth with them about, you know, deadlines and so forth. We're not over budget with this property, but we are past our deadline. But that's fine as long as we get it, you know, completed as soon as possible, because in business, time is money. So it's costing us a lot of money to not have the project complete yet. So we're just doing everything we can to push this forward. We were trying to purchase 3 to 5 properties this year, and with COVID and the pandemic, this has kind of really held us up with getting city inspections and things of that nature. But we definitely have not given up on it. Even through COVID, we purchased a property through COVID. We'll get a tenant in there through COVID. We'll get a nice family in there that will absolutely love these renovations. And then we're going to continue pressing forward no matter what the state of the country is, because I know this is just an area that is needed. And there's so many people out there that are renting properties right now that are not up to par, and they have horrible landlords, and they're just unhappy, but they're paying their money every month. And they may also be a part of these programs, and people sometimes often treat them different because they're part of these programs. So we just want to make a change in the way we run business and the way we present ourselves with the MacArthur Group, TMG Homes, the Working Mom, and any other businesses that, you know, we put and attach our names to.
Yep.
So another piece of it is basically, like you said, with all the hard work that we've been doing, I wanted to piggyback and just talk a little bit about some of the craziness in addition to our real estate business that you have to deal with me going from my AA to my MBA in a very, very short amount of time. 5 years.
Less than 5 years. 5 years.
I hustled and sleepless nights, sitting up all day. I mean, sometimes you would have to take the kids to sports while I'm on the computer from 7 a.m. to sometimes midnight, finishing long papers and things of that nature. And just kind of how it was coming from your standpoint. And I know that you're super, super proud of me. You tell me every day, all day. And I definitely appreciate that. And I try my best not to make it hard on the family and try to make it as natural as possible. So oftentimes when I do these things, the children are like, "You're finished already? I never hardly even saw you do any homework," because I just really try to make it seamless and not have it interfere with our day-to-day lives or our business.
So let me say this. Ebony is a hard worker for whatever she does. Whatever she does. Once she puts her mind to it, like I said, in less than 5 years, she already had her master's. She's about to be Dr. MacArthur. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's, if anybody knows anything, that's big business. Mm-hmm. That's going to be, what's that, 6 figures already. So it's just like the
6 figures from each one of these businesses. So my dad always says the phrase, you're on your way. But when he says that, what he means is you're on your way close to being a multimillionaire. So he always tells me that. He tells me that all the time, like, you know, not 1 million, but multifaceted forms of income if you just keep doing what you're doing. So I'm happy for all the support that I have. So I just want to kind of end on just talking about the future of our family, the future of TMG Homes, the future of the MacArthur Group, a little bit about our forever home. We go out actively. I mean, people can't even believe this, Jerome. I mean, I know we literally sometimes are so embarrassed to tell people that we are actively looking for our forever home. For some reason, we cannot find it yet. So we go out to places, we tour these homes all the time, and we just seem to not be able to find a place where it's suffice for us to say we're never going to live in another home at all. Mm-hmm. So they may think that it's me, because typically it's the wife that is like nitpicking every little thing, but you guys don't understand how bougie Jerome is. So it's not me at all. Jerome he doesn't check his bank account often, but he works hard because he loves the luxury. He loves the luxury life, and especially at home. So not necessarily, you know, just out at the mall or shopping or anything, but we have literally learned that through this pandemic that we were on the right track by making sure that we have a home that we can just be happy and stay in and live in and almost never have to leave the grounds. So that's pretty much something that we've always desired to have. And that's the reason why we love being home. So we know that we're on the right track, especially with this pandemic, because I see everybody else is literally at home ready to slit their wrists. And we love it here. Like if we take our home and just add some additional things, like maybe a skating rink, a basketball court, double stairs, all the things that we want to have. So I don't know if we have to build this home. We're trying our best not to build it. We're trying our best to find it. And then if we have to add to it, then we're okay with that. But we do kind of love homes that have already been down for, you know, a good amount of time, and some of that warmth from other families, you know, previously living in the properties and so forth. But you talk a little bit about our dream home and some things that you're looking for, you know, in our future with our family, our kids, our business, and this forever home that Jerome wants to basically walk in and say, I'm home here, I'm here from work today, and he wants the door to open automatically. He wants the blinds to come down automatically. He wants the house to basically bring him a beer. I don't know how we're going to make all of this happen, but we are trying our best to find this forever place. And it has to be private, and it has to be on a lot of acreage. I can't have, you know, my kids and my future grandkids and future great grandkids, you know, not being able to run free. Our kids love all the land, so we're definitely keeping that aspect. But what's your thoughts on all of that?
I mean, you know, I'm super excited. Anybody that knows us know when we say that we're actually looking, and, you know, a lot of people, when they come to this house and like, this not your forever house? I'm like, no, that wasn't in the plan. Me and my wife, this is not our forever house. And yes, I am the one that's always pushing, like, okay, I want this in the house, I want that in the house. And Ebony know how I am. I feel as though if you work hard and you obtain this stuff, you got to be able to use it for something. I was like, after the children get a little older, I told my wife what kind of vehicle I wanted. I mean, we could have had a his and hers already, but we put other things first, because it's not just about getting a vehicle, and you know that don't make you. You got to sit there and work towards stuff. So we got other things that's priority. building our business is priority. That's the things we do. But I'm looking forward to the forever house. It's going to have to, more than likely, we're going to get a pool. I want a pool with a grotto. So I do want that. I want a pool with a grotto.
But we're trying to get one that already has a really nice pool built, because we've built a pool once, and I don't mind if we have to build one again, but if it comes with one this time, then we can just add to it and customize it with your grotto and everything else. We can make sure it has a light show and all the fancy things that you want if it's already down. But if we have to rebuild it again, the same way that we were when we bought this house, is that we wanted a house with a pool, but if we had to build one, we were okay with it. So I am okay with rebuilding another pool. But if it has one, that would be a lot better.
See, Emily just don't know this yet. I was sitting there thinking about a pool that's shaped like an M. So she don't even know, she didn't even know that yet. But I mean, she knows the different things I want. For all jokes aside, I want to come in, I want the foyer area, I wanted to have a big M, probably be in marble, stuff like that. I want a double staircase. So like
nobody
this house
already has an M. So when we walk in the house, Jerome is just like, he's looking for where he can put this emblem of his M. And I'm just like, but their last name would have to start with an M in order for this to work. So it's like, we're trying to get this forever home. But I mean, everybody has, and the kids picked out one house that we were looking at, and now we saw this house that basically had a sports complex on the grounds, and it's like, now they won't get away with that we can't get a house that doesn't have a sports complex. And I'm just like, look, we are not sports coaches, you know what I'm saying? This probably is like a professional athlete that owned this property, but the kids, because they're also so business minded, they're like, we can rent the facility and hold tournaments here and so forth. I feel like now that we've seen this house, the inside of it was really, really old though. So it wasn't our dream house, because for the price, we would almost have to literally gut that place also. So that's what we're kind of seeing. Some of the ones that have a lot of the bones of what we want, as far as the grounds and so forth, still are so old inside. So we would probably have to put, another $1 million into them to renovate everything. And it's like, do I really want a full reno job all over again, at that price range, to redo kitchens and bathrooms and so forth? But we do love customizing as well. So I guess if we found the perfect place with the perfect amount of land and the perfect location, it's just now with our oldest son moving to Houston and Martise going off to college, that's kind of where we're stuck a little bit too, because now we've moved our search to Houston. But we're actively on the hunt for everything. And we know you have to have a double staircase. That's a must.
Yes. I definitely need that. I've been looking up stuff, the blinds where you got the remote, you just push it, the blinds open and close. That's something I definitely have to have in there. I want a big bar. Only thing I really drink, if anybody know me, is like a beer or something like that. But we like to have it stockpiled, when I have, like I said, I like entertainment.
It's stockpiled and we don't drink it. So if you ever come here and we have any events that we say, bring a bottle of liquor, we are not drinking that. It is still downstairs. So I don't know why Jerome has to have this stockpiled bar, but his bar has to be well stocked, and we never touch any of it. Jerome only drinks a beer from here and there, and everybody knows that I just love, a glass of red wine occasionally, and I'm A-okay with it. But we do not drink liquor or hard liquor like ever. So why we have to have a stock bar, I have no idea, but that's in Jerome's must-have list. So go.
Yes.
What else is in your must-have list?
my bar now, Ebony has seen this in another property. I told her, once I seen this, my bar got to look like the Friday's bar. That's how big it was down the basement. So I was like, it definitely have to be that big. I want a big, huge bar. Everybody else get little. I want a big, huge bar. And the thing about it, like I said, we work hard. Why not play hard? I might not go down there often, but I still have it.
We never go down our base. FYI, we have multiple theater rooms in our home now. We have tons of stuff that we do not use, but it's on our must-have list. So do not judge us. We still have to have it, because you never know when we would like to go and utilize it. We never know, hopefully when the next pandemic comes in 10 years, that we have to have a huge bar, the same as Fridays. We have to have multiple theater rooms. Jerome is probably going to say we have to have a bowling alley. I would like enough space to build a skating rink, even if it's not there on the grounds already. The kids have to have a full basketball court with lights. I mean, it's multiple things that have to be on this property, and it's just so hard for us to find all of these things. Oh, and Jerome also has to have at least 5 bedrooms all on the same floor. He doesn't want anybody sleeping on another level of the house or anywhere else. Everybody has to be on the same level.
On the same level.
If someone is sleeping somewhere else, maybe a guest room somewhere else, but it has to be a minimum of 5 bedrooms. Oh, and everybody obviously has to have their own bathrooms because nobody wants to share. That's absolutely not happening. We would go crazy. And I would actually even like my own bathroom just because, with all my stuff, I would like to have my own bathroom. So that's something different that we've never had, but I've seen property, so I know it's capable of being done, that I can have my own bathroom. It's just that we have to find a house with my own bathroom that also has all the other features in it as well. And we know you have to have your circle driveway. You can't, the circle driveway is a must. So even with this house now, it's so many things of this house that we absolutely love. So I can understand why people say, is this your dream home? But it's so much that it doesn't have also for us to say it's our forever home. Now, I will say, we probably can't compromise on kitchen from this house. Like, we have to have at least a kitchen the size of this house, or if not larger. And I know you like a sunroom. I don't know if Jerome will ever sit in the sunroom because that doesn't really happen often, but I know it's also on his must-have list. So he has to have a room that lots of sunlight comes in, so he can just walk by, take a look at all the sun that's coming in from all the huge windows. Because if it doesn't have a sunroom, Jerome will say this is not the one. That's also on his must-have list. And for me, it has to be super private. That's number one for me. It has to be private. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to see a neighbor. I don't want to see somebody else's house. They have to be like far, far down the road, because when I go out to get in the pool, or if the kids want to play basketball, or if we want to turn the music on or do anything of that nature, then I don't want to hear it. It has to be super, super, super private. If it's my forever home, then I have to be able to enjoy myself. I don't want to have to think about, possibly interfering with neighbors, or someone has to get up for work in the morning or anything like that. So privacy is huge. So we have to have the acreage. And that's why I've been looking towards Texas also, where, obviously we want to not be so far away once the kids start going off to college and so forth. But everybody's on board with even leaving Maryland. I mean, everybody is 100% on board with relocating, and I'm on board. I'm willing, I'm down for whatever when it's time to relocate.
And I already had friends. They was like, I know you in Ebony. They was like, I'll take that flight and come down there and see y'all in Texas. I like traveling anyway. And that's real friends. They know they'll be taken care of. They don't have to worry about room and board. We'll have the room, and we treat them like family. And that's just the way, that I was brought up. That's just the way, that I, with my family. That's just how I am. I just, if you haven't done nothing to me wrong, then we're fine. Now, if you cross me, then you'll see a whole different wrong. And that's just the truth of it. But I will give you a shot to sit there and prove yourself to me. But if you do something to me, you don't have to worry about coming back, because it won't be no coming back. That's just how I am.
Yeah, because when we throw our events, if you've never been to a MacArthur party before, then you have definitely missed out. I mean, everybody absolutely adores our events. And like I said, it's always just a great time, great people. We love being around people that, are welcoming and so forth. Like, we can have 200 people and half of them barely know each other, and they'll leave out of there having a new friend immediately. Like, they'll be exchanging numbers and hanging out. I mean, even when we got married, we had so many people get in relationships and getting married and all types of dating from just all hanging out from our events. So we just love having, you know, that kind of fellowship and so forth. And you basically know how I am. Like, I have friends that are not blood relatives, but they are family to me. So blood doesn't necessarily mean that that puts you at a higher status to me. Like, I have lifelong friends that are definitely my family, that people I can depend on, people that will basically support us no matter what we do, where we go, and have our back. So even if we end up not doing our forever home here, then we're okay with that too. Because I think our goal, like, we strategically even bought this house. I think our goal here was 5 years, and it's been 5.5. But once Martise graduates high school and he goes off to college, then we'll make another decision on, you know, if we're going to go exactly at that time. But we're only a tiny bit over what our goal was to stay here. So even moving in the door, we already knew that this was not our forever home, even though we love this property. So we definitely wouldn't, I definitely don't want to sell it. It's an amazing piece of property here. It's an amazing piece of land. We already have built a pool here, but again, I'll build again with the M in the middle or anything else that you want. But thank you so much, Jerome, for doing this interview with us today and speaking with everybody and everybody that tunes in for the Working Mom. I definitely appreciate it. You have spoken so much and given so much insight. And I know a lot of people don't have the opportunity to speak to you this often and go this in depth with, you know, who you are as a husband and as a father. But I definitely appreciate it. Appreciate all that you do. We absolutely adore you here. And the kids are all sitting around just waiting. Everybody's like, I want to see the interview. I want to see the interview. Like, they didn't even want us to film it without everybody being actually in the house and so forth. So everybody's anticipating and waiting to see everything that you have to say. And another thing that I just want to say personally is I just always thank you. And, you know, I thank you more than anything. So I'm just always saying thank you. I'm always so super grateful, but I just thank you for allowing me to be me. We started off early on, just basically creating this bond between each other, and even starting from the day of our wedding, where we decided not to do public vows. We decided that whatever we wanted to say to each other, we were going to hold each other's hands, look into each other's eyes, and say what we had to say to each other. Like, I didn't want to speak on my thoughts for our future or our family or anything in front of the entire crowd. Like, the only person that was important that needed to hear those words were you. So that's how I decided to move forward, to speak with you directly. And I just thank you for always allowing me to be myself, to say everything that I could possibly comes to mind. You know, I have a crazy, things that come out of my mouth and out of my head is like, are absolutely insane. And I just always thank you for not only with putting up with all of it, but just being so patient with me, being so patient with the children, and always being so understanding. And anytime I have, you know, to voice my opinion to you or any thoughts, then you're always open to having that conversation with me and kind of getting down to whatever the situation or the issues may be. And I know that's something you've always been big on since day one. If it's anything that I ever had to say to you that you just wanted me to just be as open and honest as possible and bring everything straight to the table and just, you know, fight everything head on with you directly. So I just appreciate you for being a man of your word and always protecting and providing for us. Even then, I had no idea that this future was what we had in store. I mean, I know you would always try to get me things, and I would always be like, I don't want to take anything from him. I don't want to. And I'm also even grateful. So ladies, when just going out and getting things from somebody is not 100% the way. Turning down and just having your own, being independent is absolutely fine. You can be a strong, independent woman and still have a very healthy relationship with another strong individual that is still there to support you and be there for you, and you don't have to weaken yourself or change who you are, things of that nature. So just finding that person in my life has just been awesome. And this has just been a crazy journey. And I'm looking forward to many, many more years of a crazy journey. We celebrate this month 13 years of marriage, which we don't even know anybody our age that has been married this long. We've never been separated. We've never been broken up. We never lived anywhere separately. We've always just stuck in there with each other, handled, again, taking things on, head on. We've never left for a week. I don't even think Jerome gets mad, and I can't even think of a time that he gets angry with me and even leaves. Like, Jerome is literally paying me no attention if I'm getting on his nerves. Long as he's in his chair watching his movie, he's literally like, whatever. So that's just awesome too, because you don't see that nowadays out of, younger couples. Like, everybody's getting mad, everybody's leaving, everybody's getting in the car and, going somewhere and not coming home that night and all of that crazy stuff that we just never entertained and got into. Like, we pretty much just, steadfast and just worked out everything with each other. So I thank you so much, again, for being that person in my life. I thank you again for touching base on everything and giving us a little more insight. We'll probably have you back later on in the interview on the podcast, as we finish some more properties and get more in depth. I'm quite sure that people will have tons of questions. We try to touch base on as much stuff as possible, but
yes,
anything that we get questions on in the future, we'll bring you back and make sure that we put that, on the topic. So thank you so much for being on this episode of the Working Mom podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.